Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I'm looking at these Lord of the Rings spoilers coming out. I'm sure everyone is. There's a lot of interesting cards to talk about for sure, and typically I talk about the legendary creatures as they come out, and I'm actually holding off on that for a very specific reason that I will get to when I eventually talk about all the legendary creatures from this set in one big video. There's a couple of 99 cards, though, that I really want to talk about right away. They're absolute Commander staples, in my opinion, right out of the gate, slam dunks in so many different decks. They're both in the sort of go wide strategy theme a little bit. If you're in any of those strategies, I think these two cards are auto includes. So let's take a look at the first one. Flowering of the White Tree. White and a white, a legendary enchantment. Legendary creatures you control get +2/+1 and have ward 1, and non-legendary creatures you control get +1/+1. So obviously this is white, so it's got to go in a white deck. A lot of those go wide strategies, a lot of those, Soldier Tribal, Knight Tribal, they are in white. So this is going to fit in a ton of decks for that reason, for sure. Also, there's a whole lot of legendary tribal commanders. There's a few of them in white that this will also fit. It is absolute slam dunk. It's an auto include for sure. I'm going to go off on a bit of a limb here that this might be the best Anthem in the entire format now. I mean, even if you just had a 2-mana enchantment that gives all your creatures +1/+1, that's pretty good. That on its own is pretty good. The fact that it gives your legendary creatures the +2/+1 and the ward 1 is amazing. Sylvan Anthem, I think, would probably be the closest to being one of the best. Obviously, that's green, and if you're in a deck that's green and you don't have white, that's going to be your best option. But getting away from color, I think Flowering of the White Tree might be the best Anthem in the entire format now. And even outside of the go wide strategy, obviously, if I have a ton of creatures in play, let's say I got 5 creatures, all my non-legendary ones get +1/+1, and then my commander, likely which my go wide strategy is relying on, is going to get +2/+1 and the ward 1, which I really, really like. And outside of the go wide strategy, I think this is still a very playable card. Even in a Voltron type of strategy, I think this is a very playable card. Just think about it this way. If I have an aura that is 2 mana that gives my commander +2/+1 and ward 1, that's pretty darn good. So that, to me, is worth it to put in a Voltron. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're doing, but that seems pretty good. But this is not an aura. It's sitting on the battlefield. And one of the big drawbacks about auras and even equipments, like equipments, when they get unattached from your commander, right? Your commander dies, it's very mana intensive a lot of times. Auras, obviously, a lot of times will just completely go away. Here, this just sticks on the battlefield, right? And immediately, as soon as you play your commander, it's going to get all of these stats attached to it, especially the ward 1 is really great. I mean, ward 1 is not super fantastic. It makes it a little bit more difficult for your opponents to remove your commander. And then your commander dies, this sticks around. You play your commander again, and it gets that +2/+1 and ward 1 immediately as soon as it hits the battlefield. And then on top of that, if you just happen to have other creatures lying around, they're going to get the +1/+1, which is pretty good. And if you have other legendary creatures lying around, they're going to get the +2/+1 and the ward 1. So I think this is probably the best Anthem in the entire format now. It's an absolute auto include in any go wide strategy in white, in my opinion. I'm trying to think of a reason why even if you're in a token strategy, non-legendary tokens, they're going to get +1/+1. If the tokens happen to be legendary, it gets even better. So I'm trying to think of the creature heavy strategy in white that doesn't really want this. I think they all do. It's just one of those cards that is going to very easily slot. You're going to have to find room, right? That's the only issue you're going to have, is you're going to have to find room. That's the only problem. It's a phenomenal Anthem, maybe the best in the format now. All right, the other card I'm looking at here, which is a little bit different. It's a colorless card, and it's still in the go wide strategy theme, mostly where you want to be playing at. Horn of the Mark, 2 mana, legendary artifact. Whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So first of all, the wording, pretty important here, right? The wording is whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player. So that means you can't attack different players. It has to be 2 creatures attacking 1 player. You have to attack 1 opponent with those 2 creatures. That's not super difficult. And of course, if you're in that go wide strategy, you're doing it a lot, which is where this card is mostly going to be a great fit. Because obviously, if you're in that go wide strategy, you're also in a creature heavy strategy. So if you look at the top 5 cards of your library, you're almost assuredly going to hit a creature card and you're going to put it into your hand. So again, it's because this card is colorless, it's going to go in so many more decks. It's just phenomenal card advantage, in my opinion, because every time I'm attacking, and again, I'm in a deck where I'm in the go wide attacky theme. So it can be go wide as in I just have lots of little creatures in play, or I'm just attacking a lot, which I guess there are strategies like a Voltron strategy where you're attacking a lot, but only with one creature. But most of the time when you're attacking, it's with more than one creature. You just got to make sure you attack the same person with two creatures. This only costs 2 mana and it's a free card in your hand. And again, I look at the top 5 cards in my library. That's pretty good. I can see 2 creatures in there and I get to pick the one that I want more, right? Seems pretty fantastic. You could very easily slot this into any go wide, even a tribal strategy, right? You don't even have to think of it as an attacky theme. I'm in Spirit Tribal, right? That very easily I can attack one opponent with 2 of my flying spirits, look at the top 5 cards of my library and put a card into my hand. You could almost think of this in that, as long as you're in the attacky theme, you could think of this as draw a card, right? 2 mana draw a card every turn, which is phenomenal, right? Not putting any mana into it. All you have to do is attack, which you're doing in your deck anyway, right? If you're already doing that anyway, this just seems like phenomenal card advantage to me, right? Look at the top 5 cards. As long as you have for me, 30 creatures is a creature strategy. If I'm in a creature heavy deck that is built around me having creatures for whatever reason, whether or not I want to be attacking with them or blinking them or whatever the case may be, to me, 30 is sort of once I hit 30, that's a creature heavy deck. That's a deck where a card like this can be really good. And I am pretty much guaranteed when I look at the top 5 cards in my library that I'm going to hit a creature card that I can then put into my hand. And again, likely you'll hit a few and you can pick the one that you really want, right? So colorless card, very easily slots in any deck. Really, really fantastic card advantage. And, if you're in that, let's say, Goblin deck where they don't draw cards too well, this could be a phenomenal option for getting better card advantage in your deck. I think this card goes in a ton of decks. And in fact, because it's colorless, it might even go in more decks than Flowering of the White Tree. Either way, both of these cards, absolute Commander staples going forward. I think they're definitely 2 of the best cards that I've seen from coming out from this set so far. There's a bunch of good ones. This set is really hit or miss. I see a bunch of cards where I'm like, ooh, man, that's not very good. Commanders especially, it's like, wow, it's almost like they're trying to make them bad. But then I see other ones that are super interesting, super flavorful, even some that can be considered to be pretty busted, which I will be getting to. I will be making a video on the best 99 cards from this set, and I will be making a video on the best commanders from this set coming up towards the end of the week. Stay tuned for that. Let me know what you think of these new cards in the comments below. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.